men who've come in with very low sperm count, very low motility, very poor morphology, the shape, and every one of these parameters after a period of time has actually like jumped phenomenally, like, by not just like a factor of 1 and 2, by motility and concentration jumping up by by the millions.
Wow.
We've had cases of women who've come in who were almost planning to start up their IVF cycle, but who came in here, like went through a period of like 3 weeks doing this program and have actually conceived. No matter what the end outcome is, I always say that there has to be a proactive way of looking at fertility and holistic health. So we're actually presenting now this program for enhancing fertility as something that you do at the time of thinking about it or thinking about conception, because that really is the stage that you can actually address.
Again, educate the public and to maybe, just, I don't know, like to inform the public a bit more about Ayurveda. We spoke about this as well before the show, and we spoke about how Ayurveda focuses or believes in 5 elements.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about those?
Of course.
What are the 5 elements and why does it focus on those?
Right. A lot of cultures, a lot of healing sciences actually focus on elements around us. Ayurveda has always done that. The 5 elements that Ayurveda focuses on are air, space, earth, water, and fire.
Okay.
And when it focuses on these elements, what it's really focusing on are the qualities that these elements bring into your system. So when you think about the combination and the fusion of these elements, that actually creates a set of qualities inside your constitution, which then tells an Ayurvedic doctor or a physician how to assess you. So let me work this through with taking some examples so that we can illustrate it for your audience, right? So the first combination that Ayurveda talks about is air and space, right? Or air and ether, or air and space. Now, if you think about the qualities of air and space, so first of all, you need space for air to flow into, right? So the hollow organs inside our body are representative of the space that ether has. Air is always a mobility quality, right? It's always on the move. Right, so the quality of movement, everything governing movement in our body is governed by this air and space combination. So air and space together in Ayurveda forms a bioenergy which we call Vata, V-A-T-A, Vata.
Okay.
And Vata is everything which governs the entire movement in our body, the movement of our breath in our body, the movement of our joints and our muscles in the body, like, the movement of the entire nervous system, our thoughts moving in and out of our the entire body, controlling of neural impulses.
Okay.
I'm kind of correlating between Ayurveda and what we understand as modern medical science.
Of course, yeah.
So all of this is governed by the qualities of air and space, which is Vata, right? I'll come back to what happens when when this Vata quality gets into a disturbed nature, but this is essentially Vata. Then you talk about the combination of fire and water. Right? Opposing forces.
Right.
But ultimately, the fire constitutes the combination of fire and water creates metabolic or transformational forces inside the body. So everything that is transforming, that has a transformative nature, our entire enzymatic system, the endocrinal system, the digestive system, all of these, essentially what are they doing? They're taking various elements, food, blood, lymph, and they're transforming it into other energies which are transported to the other parts of the body. So all of these are created by this combination of fire and water. Okay. And that is called Pitta, which is another type of bioenergy. The energy of transformation is called Pitta.
Okay.
Right? P-I-T-T-A, Pitta.
Okay.
The third energy is called Kapha. This is the combination of water and earth, the qualities of water and earth. So imagine earth and water, when they come together, the way they will kind of manifest. You have a very grounded feeling because that's the nature of earth and water, right? So this is the quality that actually gives structure to the body. Your entire body frame, what holds all the organs together is Kapha. But at the same time, it's also what provides lubrication to the body because of that water element along with earth.
Right.
So the entire mucous membrane of our body, the structure of our body, what gives shape and growth. During the early growing years, Kapha is one of the most important qualities because it gives us the growth parameters in our body. So this is Kapha, the combination of this.
Okay.
As human beings, the way Ayurveda looks at it, we are all incorporating, or we are all comprised of all of these three qualities, right? Because you cannot have a body which just only has movement without structure and metabolism. You cannot have just metabolism without movement and structure. So we all have all these three qualities or all these bioenergies with us when we are born. Mm-hmm. Over time, what tends to happen is because of our environment, because of our lifestyle, because of socioeconomic factors, many, many different things.
Right.
The perfect balance of all these three qualities that we're born with gets disturbed or vitiated, right? Which is why we say that when an Ayurvedic physician examines somebody, he will say this person is predominantly a Vata Pitta combination, but in this case, his Vata is out of balance. And what does that mean? When somebody whose Vata is out of balance, normally a Vata person, because of the qualities of air and space, will always be somebody who's lean and on the leaner side, on the skinnier side, but also with like long fingers and extremities. Physically, this person has a lot of high energy, very creative, is always on the go, wants to do multiple things, trying to achieve a lot, but can't stick with one thing for too long. That's the quality of air and space. So if you start thinking about it, like these qualities manifest themselves very, very clearly. Wow. But at the same time, when Vata is out of balance, it leads to a lot of anxiety, insomnia. These are all very typical Vata kind of problems.
Right.
And again, because Vata is by nature a cool, dry, internal constitution, a very high Vata imbalance means that you would have a lot of dryness in the body, a lot of joint pains and aches, which is why people also say that as you grow older, the Vata starts acting up.
Right.
Similarly with Pitta, normally Pitta constitutions, because of that fire element, have fantastic digestions. Mm-hmm. There's more muscular, well-toned physical constitutions. Mentally, there are people who will think ahead. They are always ambitious. They can plan. They like to be leaders. That's the typical Pitta constitution. Mm-hmm. But when Pitta is out of balance, physically, it leads to a lot of acidity because of the eruption of digestive systems, because it's not working in balance. And emotionally and mentally, the person becomes very irritable and absolutely cannot stand in something which is going out of structure. They just combust. That's a typical Pitta being out of balance. And then when you come to Kapha, by nature, a Kapha person is always, because of that water and fire element, very grounded, very amiable, very easy, content to let things go exactly the way it is. That's the typical Kapha constitution. Okay. But when Kapha is out of balance, then your entire body's metabolism is under threat. And you have very low metabolism. So people with a huge Kapha imbalance will tend to put on weight very quickly, will become very sluggish, tend to procrastinate. These are all the things that are Kapha imbalances. So what is Ayurveda saying? Ayurveda is basically saying, once we know your natural constitution, because there are two things. What is your natural constitution that you were born with? And that tends to change a little bit over time, but not too much.
Okay.
We know your natural constitution, so we know this is the way you should be leading your life according to your natural constitution. But we also know that over time, certain things have got imbalanced. So what is it that we can do from Ayurveda to correct that balance? Once you know these things, it's crystal clear. And that's why the elements that are around us get mirrored into our own bioenergies inside our body.
Wow. Yeah. Unbelievable. Because everything you're saying, I can relate to.
It makes sense.
I mean, it makes absolute sense. Yeah. And it feels like a lot of what we see in conventional medicine right now is based on that, because I think this is an ancient medical system that obviously developed into what we know as medicine today. And it's absolutely fantastic that you said that, and that everything, when you were speaking about the organs and when you were speaking about mental health, they're not two separate things.
No, not at all.
Because your mental health affects your physical, and your physical affects your mental. And it's just, we know that they're interconnected. So finding the root cause is only natural for someone to feel better.
I've had more examples of people coming into Ananda where they've been suffering, for example, from chronic pain, whether due to incorrect posture or some previous injury or whatever the reason is. Yeah. And they could be sufferers for a very, very long time, trying all kinds of different things. And finally, they've got relief when we worked on the emotional side or on the mental side, because it's so connected.
Yes, of course.
Right?
I mean, of course, your nervous system is enough. I mean, to affect
and vice versa. Like we've gone in and corrected complete digestive systems, and that's corrected huge amounts of chronic stress too.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay. Last question about Ayurveda,
Yeah.
and then we're going to talk about
Sure.
you and Ananda a bit more. What is it with eating your meals warm? I read something about how Ayurveda stresses or emphasizes on the importance of someone eating a meal warm. Why is that important?
It's a great question.
I found that so interesting.
Yeah. And I have to maybe validate that because it's true in a certain sense, but also there's a little bit of misunderstanding. There's depth to it, which could take you in a couple of different directions. So first of all, because of the way our bodies are constituted, Ayurveda always believes that nourishment is the most important thing. What we call digestion, otherwise in Ayurveda, is referred to as Agni, which is that fire symbol, but it goes beyond just digestion. It's the digestion of every molecule that comes into your body at every tissue structure of what you are. So the first thing that an Ayurvedic doctor will always assess is how is your body's natural digestive capacity. Your body's natural digestive capacity should tell you with a clear time frame that this is how you digest and make you feel hungry for the next meal in just the right appropriate amount with the right response, digestive response and salivatory response, all of these things that we know from modern medical science, right? Now, the point is that most of us actually don't have a proper digestive system which actually triggers all of these things. And at least in that initial stages when we're trying to figure out what is kind of imbalanced in our body, you need to bring back a basic sense of metabolism into your system.
Right.
That's very difficult to do when you're consuming a lot of cold items because just like you need, like in a traditional blacksmith, the bellows, you need that amount of heat and air to actually keep the bellows working or the digestive fires moving. Similarly, in Ayurveda, warm, nutritious food is a great way to actually keep the Ayurvedic cycle or the digestive cycle continuously working. So that's the first thing. Even if you think about fasting, Ayurveda recommends, at least in the initial phases, considering a fast which actually consumes where you're not completely fasting, but you're actually consuming really less quantities of warm cooked food because that is the best way to keep your entire digestive system working and keep adding on healthy microbes and bacteria back into your system. So that's a very general response of the question that you just asked. However, if I was a Vata kind of person, because we've now introduced these concepts to your audience, if I was a Vata kind of person, then 150% I must have all my meals as warm cooked food because my basic body constitution is cold and dry. To counterbalance my basic constitution, warm nourished foods with healthy fats, healthy oils is an absolute must. If I'm a Pitta kind of person, and if I have my Pitta slightly out of balance, then think about what we just discussed. The basic problem that you have is too much heat and too much fire in your system. So to counterbalance it, you're better off with cool foods. I'm not talking about cold and dry foods. That has to be avoided in Ayurveda from an Ayurvedic perspective completely. Stale, cold, packaged foods are a big no-no. It's not too difficult to figure out why.
Yeah, of course.
But the Pitta kind of constitution needs something cool to counterbalance the effects of the heat. But having said that, if you're talking about the Kapha personality, the Kapha constitution, where your basic metabolism is low, you need things to boost that metabolism. You need things to reduce the sluggishness in your system. You're already very mucousy. You're already very heavy. So there, having maybe even some amount of raw food, raw salads, is not a bad thing. But the same thing is an absolute no for a Vata personality. So again, it's not one size fits all is what I'm saying. You really need to understand what the situation is, how to address it. But yes, you're absolutely right. Overall, there is a governing principle in Ayurveda that keep the nutrition and the Agni constantly flowing, which is why in Ayurveda, we always recommend have warm water, which is steeped with some herbs like cinnamon or fennel or cardamom, and you can keep sipping it through the day. It really keeps your Agni or the metabolism at its peak.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I honestly, I'm just sitting here in awe because a lot of what you're saying would seem like common sense, but a lot of us just forget to do it.
It's a manual. It's a blueprint for everyday living.
Exactly.
Really.
And we just forget, or we get distracted, or we get so engrossed in our daily routine and stresses and anxieties that we forget these basic practices.
I totally agree.
That could make such a great difference in our health. Okay. Now, shifting to
Sure.
Ananda.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about your facility. So what is it that you offer and how do you help people? Because the next question is going to be like, maybe tell us some success stories as well of people that
absolutely.
came to Ananda.
So it first came into existence in the year 2000. So we're just about 24 years since we began.
Okay.
The lineage of Ananda is very much emerged from the thought process of our founder and the MD who's came in from a hospitality background. His name is Ashok Khanna, and he is the grandson of a very well-established luxury hotel group, the Oberoi Hotels in India. He was the grandson of the first Mr. Oberoi.
Yes.
And I think around the late 90s is when he started thinking about the fact that already we could see the signs of a very fast-paced tech world linked, time-poor, high-stressed kind of individuals. And we knew that this was going. He was ahead of his time. And also combined with that, the fact that in India, you already had such ancient principles of Ayurveda, Yoga, Vedanta. Vedanta is a study of Vedic texts and philosophies. We had the answers. We had the solutions. The ancient people had been following this for millennia. Mm-hmm. So why not bring all of these, but bring it in a way that the modern consumer and the modern seeker can understand very easily. Mm-hmm. So the two of that led to the culmination and beginning of Ananda, and I think it led to a 3-4 year search for the perfect location. Mm. But this place where we are, it's in a foothills of the Himalayan mountains, in just above a town called Rishikesh, which already is on the world map because it's known as the yoga capital of the world. Yeah. A lot of the traditional yoga ashrams are located there. The Beatles visited there in 1968.
Wow.
And spent a year there in transcendental meditation. So it's got that energy. Yeah. Yogis have sat and meditated on the foothills and in the mountains surrounding where we are for
the scenery is
thousands.
Just enough for healing.
Absolutely. So I think that was the ideal place. The river Ganges comes down from the Himalayan mountains, flows past the glaciers, comes past Rishikesh, and that's exactly what we look over where we are at. So we're on a hill just above this town of Rishikesh with the Ganges below. It's a very large property. It was actually the palace of the Maharaja of Tehri Garhwal, which is the state where we're in, and it's his entire palace estate. It begins with an absolute gorgeous palace built about 200 years old. That's the Maharaja's palace. That's the only part of Ananda which is actually private, which is his private residence.
Oh, okay.
And then behind it is a beautiful viceregal palace, which was actually built in the early 1930s.
Okay.
And that's where Ananda begins. And beyond it is just acres and acres of forested land. The entire place is really very peaceful, it's very calm, it's very tranquil. You've got beautiful views of the valley below, the Himalayan mountains around, medicinal forests all around. So the moment you're in there, there's a sense of upliftment, grounding, just calm. You just instantly switch off. It's 100 acres of space around you, so you're not in touch with any. The nearest city is far below us, so you're far away from civilization, but yet you get that energy of what's happening down there, of all the hills around us. Yes. So that's the kind of physical location of Ananda. And the way we created the spaces was with a lot of care to connect people with nature, have everything as an inside-outside kind of feel. The spa itself is just this most incredible, tranquil space. It's almost like a cocoon which just takes you in, and that's where you're spending most of your time anyways.
Yeah.
So this is where we are. What we do is really kind of take people through an entire journey of how they can address their own well-being through different modalities. Mm-hmm. Ayurveda, Yoga, Vedanta, like I mentioned, a study of scriptures. Right. But there's also other integrated aspects like traditional Chinese medicine, mantra chanting, aromatherapy, hydrotherapy, physiotherapy. And most people think, for example, these are just practices. For example, physiotherapy is just something to fix pain. But the way we do it is through very traditional holistic physiotherapy. Right. Yoga that we practice is very traditional. It comes from a school of yoga, which is Hatha Yoga. We follow the Bihar school of yoga, the Raja Yoga system for meditation. So these are systems where you're thinking about yoga as a lifestyle, not yoga as a fitness-based jumping up and down rapid movement class or a hot yoga in a studio. I have nothing against that. That's a great way that it's expanded across the world.
But it's a different goal.
It's a different goal.
Yes.
Here it's very much to think about what is the true purpose of yoga? How do you bring it into your life? Right. How do you treat yoga as a stepping stone for further meditation? So we have all these integrated aspects. So every one of our guests is going through them in some way or the other.
Right.
And in terms of what we offer are a whole different range of programs to address your needs. So some people are following like a cleanse or a detox program. Many others want to lose weight, so they're following a weight loss program. Somebody else has high stress in their life, so they're doing a stress management program or a meditation program like dhyana to address their meditation issues. We have a whole range of women's health programs like to address menstrual health, for menopausal health, but also what we just in fact launched very recently is something to address fertility, which is a huge area of discussion today. Then we have chronic long-standing issues, whether it could be chronic pain or diabetes or cholesterol or arthritis. So Ayurveda and all these different sciences are so incredible because they address everything from the root. And that's how somebody comes to Ananda. So when you're in there, whether you're spending a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, you start off with a consultation before you come in. When you're coming in, there's a whole team of people who are sitting down and guiding you to every step of the way. And like I mentioned, after you leave, the journey doesn't stop. So we do a lot of follow-up to take you ultimately towards your goal. But essentially, we're just guides. We're showing the path. The true change makers are the people, the individuals, and they're actually the healers. They're healing themselves.
Of course. It has to come from within.
Absolutely.
I mean, any change that you're going to do, no matter how many times your family or your friends push you to do something.
No, it'll never change.
It'll never happen unless you are convinced and you do it from within.
And so much of it is with the mind.
Of course.
And which is why when you say body, mind, and spirit, or mind, body, spirit, it's very often used, but how you apply it is absolutely critical. So, for example, people come to Ananda and they're on a weight management program and they say, why does my weight management schedule have 50% of the classes as meditation classes?
I was just going to say, I was just going to tell you this because you mentioned that people can come and opt for like a stress and anxiety program or a weight loss. And I feel like all of them would serve everything.
100%.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I could be losing weight. I go in for the weight loss program, but then I find myself less stressed and my anxiety is sort of subsiding. And, and I feel like it's all interconnected.
Oh, completely. And that resolve. Like, when you meditate, your mind becomes clearer. When you meditate early in the morning, we have actually a process, a meditative technique called Yoga Nidra. Many people would be familiar with this, where you're actually visualizing all parts of your body in a rotation, and you're lying down. And you're not sleeping, but it's a state of just that state between sleep and consciousness, and you're in that state. And at that stage, when you're actually able to put a resolve into your mind, that really sticks with you. And those techniques are invaluable when you're talking about technique aspects like weight management or anything else, any other problem that you're facing.
Yes, that's beautiful. Okay, you mentioned a very big announcement that you were talking about today, and that's actually really big for you as Mahesh and as Ananda as well, which is fertility.
Right.
And this is a hot topic. I mean, this is something that we've discussed over and over again on this show from different aspects. So medically, socially, psychologically, from a mental health aspect, and even from a medical insurance aspect. And I'm interested to know what your announcement is.
So Ayurveda forever has a completely separate branch of holistic science called Vajikarana. This is a ancient branch of Ayurveda which actually developed precisely for this, to actually work on proactive fertility health, to work on not just immediate conception, but whether it's now or intermediate or whenever later you're planning it. And it doesn't matter how you're approaching it. You could be planning for immediate conception now, you could be planning an IVF later, you could be even thinking about egg freezing for starting a family much later in life. It doesn't matter what it is ultimately, but this branch of Ayurveda really works on the quality and of the reproductive seed from a very, very initial stage, from going into the root cause, the root issue. And once you work on it, it's in Ayurveda, the term is called Shukra in this branch of science. Shukra means the reproductive seed. What we don't realize, and what Ayurveda has categorized very clearly, is that the quality of the reproductive seed is actually the final layer, or the dhatu, or the tissue of how your entire body is synthesized. All your nutrition, all your lifestyle habits go through successive tissues of your existence, from your muscles and blood and lymph and all of and right down till it finally comes in and affects your reproductive tissue or chakras. So if you're having challenges at that level, imagine how much has already gone on and how much you actually need to sit down and now correct and take stock of. So this is a beautiful science. It's a deep science, and it goes through different stages of something called Shodhana, which is cleansing therapy and purificatory, specifically designed for these fertility issues. Then you're doing restorative therapies. There's a whole line of herbal supplements like Shilajit, Shatavari, Ashwagandha, all of these in certain combinations in Ayurveda, which are incredible for improving fertility health. And when we're talking about improving the Shukra, it's on both sides. Improving the sperm quality, improving the quality of the egg. And it's not just the reproductive seed. We also focus a lot on improving the reproductive environment, the entire uterine bed, because that's such a critical aspect of what's required today. It takes time. It's not a quick fix. In Ayurveda, Vajikarana, even in our text, it says it takes 72 days of initial treatment, but after that, following a lifestyle to actually see a distinct improvement in the quality of the reproductive seed.
And in the medical sense, by the way.
Oh, 100%.
As well. So doctors have said it takes 72 days.
Right.
It's a 72-day process as well.
Absolutely. So that's fascinating, isn't it? That like these two worlds can actually converge.
Exactly.
And we've actually had specific cases of men who've come in with very low sperm count, very low motility, very poor morphology, the shape, and every one of these parameters after a period of time has actually like jumped phenomenally, like, by not just like a factor of 1 and 2, by motility and concentration jumping up by like, by the millions.
Wow.
We've had cases of women who've come in who were almost planning to start up their IVF cycle, but who came in here, like went through a period of like 3 weeks doing this program and have actually conceived. No matter what the end outcome is, I always say that there has to be a proactive way of looking at fertility and holistic health. So we're actually presenting now this program for enhancing fertility as something that you do at the time of thinking about it or thinking about conception, because that really is the stage that you can actually address. However, it's equally effective for those who've been going through an IVF cycle or have planned to go through an IVF cycle, because you can definitely increase the quality of your reproductive material. Similarly, for somebody who's actually even planning to freeze eggs, again, the quality of what you need to be freezing, improving the reproductive quality, you can do that through Ayurveda, and it over time. And I don't want to like specifically make a current claim on this, but we've seen also the degree to which you have to introduce the hormonal interventions or like even for IVF or otherwise, like the quantum of that can actually reduce using Ayurveda. And we're seeing that not just in fertility, but across the board for different sciences. For example, like switching over a bit to, if you look at diabetes, we've had specific test cases where not only has the level of your basic parameters like the HbA1c, the sugar levels actually reduce, but even the quantum of the insulin that people have to be taking have dramatically reduced by using Ayurveda. So it's a deep science for sure.
This is so interesting. We can talk about this for like 3 days
I
straight
know,
and still
absolutely.
not be done.
Absolutely.
Just, because everyone's looking at the time, and I know you have meetings the rest of the day, and I want to keep you here, but at the same time, we will have you back, hopefully, if you ever come visit again, or maybe
that'll
we
be
come
a pleasure.
visit you. So definitely we
Great
will.
way to experience true, the true energy of what I'm been talking about so far.
Yes, I would love to. I mean, just you talking about it and describing the place makes me want to go tomorrow. So
that's so kind. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll come visit you. But just before we let you off the hook, my last question is, what's your advice for people who are still a little skeptical or don't really they're interested in Ayurveda, but they still don't know enough or still feel like, no, you know what, I still need to know more. Like, what's your advice? I mean, it's always like that when it's a new concept.
Right.
What would your advice be?
So I think take it one step at a time. I feel the first thing that you really need to do is find a qualified Ayurvedic physician. And even if you don't do anything else, just invest in time to do a first consultation. Because being able to understand what your basic, what we call dosha is or prakriti is, you will get so many answers. Even if you haven't started planning what your future is going to be, it will tell you a lot about the way you are today. Why you do the things that you do, why you eat the way you eat, why you sleep the way you sleep, why you have the level of stress at the levels of where it is. It'll tell you a lot about what you are today. That's a starting point. That would be my first guidance for somebody. And after that, don't try and do everything in one go. It's a gradual process. Maybe the first step of what you're looking at is, can you just see if you can make small tweaks to the food that you're eating based on your doshas that you now know with a consultation. Just start there. You don't have to go and do something really, very intensive.
Or drastic.
There isn't anything that drastic in Ayurveda. It's a very gradual science.
No,
but again, you could have a time factor that you need to consider. Start small. And when you're feeling comfortable about this, that it's really starting, you'll start feeling different. I can assure you about that. 3 weeks of just following an Ayurvedic diet, you'll already start feeling lighter. You'll be sleeping better. You'll feel like you're getting a burst of immunity. Try that. Then take some time off if you're convinced, and then invest more. Come into a retreat, hopefully a place like Ananda. But take and do it in steps. And that's what I always tell people, whether it's Ayurveda or any other holistic science. When people come to Ananda, a lot of them have never practiced yoga in their lives. Our intention is not to make them yoga masters or yogis. Our intention is, can you build a 20-minute yoga practice into your everyday life? Just 20 minutes. That's all it takes to change your life. Or a 5-minute pranayama, which is breath work, or a 10-minute meditation. If you can do this, our intention has been set.
Steady wins the race.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we always say that. When you rush into things, when you overwhelm yourself, you're just adding more stress, which defeats the purpose.
Totally.
So, I mean, take it easy, take it in phases, as you said.
Absolutely. And it's a learning process. You'll get hooked on, there are books that you can refer to. Take it one step at a time, and you'll get there.
Mahesh, it was lovely having you in the studio.
My pleasure, completely.
Thank you so much for giving us from your time, your valuable time. And we'd love to meet you again, hopefully soon.
I can't wait. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.